Let me just put forth one possibility here. Maybe the Jews that went around poisoning the wells did not quite fully understand the consequences of their actions. Maybe the rabbis that sent them out to do these things understood, or at least had a better idea of what they were hoping to accomplish, but maybe, just maybe, some of the Jews that actually did it did not fully understand what would take place and what would come of it. And later on, once they saw the results of their actions, and once they realized what they contributed to, maybe, just maybe, some of them got a guilty conscience and confessed and admitted to doing these things and taking the orders from these rabbis to do them. And that's where these confessions came from. Not from someone being beaten and tortured into a confession, but people engaging in an act that they did not quite fully understand the scope of things until the effects came about, and maybe they just got a conscience of it and admitted, hey, this rabbi told me to do it, that rabbi told me to do it, and here's what I did, and here's how these things took place. I mean, I don't know. This is just speculation. This is just one of the possibilities, but you have to think along these lines, not just what they want you to believe. These confessions were forced out of them? Maybe. It's a possibility. As I said, I cannot state for certain one way or the other. But at the same time, a Jewish person couldn't come along and say that I'm crazy, out of my mind, or completely off base when I suggest this as being a distinct possibility. It is a real possibility. There very well may have been some rabbis that knew what they were doing, did this deliberately, had all the intent in the world to spread this disease, to kill many people, maybe not 2 in every 3 Europeans, maybe all of them, maybe half of them, maybe a third of them. I really can't guess, other than to state or speculate that they had intent behind it, that some people had intent. Maybe not everyone that was involved in the conspiracy, and this is the same thing that takes place today. I've pointed this out before as well. There may be people that are involved in the things that are taking place here and in the now that don't quite fully understand what's going on. They don't see the big picture. They're part of the problem. They're a piece of the puzzle, and they just don't realize it. They think, well, this thing that I'm doing doesn't really affect that many people. No one will notice. No one will be hurt by it, so they play along. But if they really knew the full scope of things and the damage that's being caused and where it's all heading, I think a lot of people, Jewish people included, would pull back, would think twice about what they were doing. Because even though they're willing participants to a degree, if they do not fully understand the results of their actions, then I'm not saying we can't hold them accountable, but what I am saying is there's a certain degree of accountability that applies to the people that have the intent, that know where things are heading, that see the big picture, that create the big picture, and there are other people with varying degrees of involvement. Some that know more than others, and again, there might be some people that they know they're selling out. I'm talking about here and in the now. They know they're selling out. They know they're taking a shortcut. They know that the system's not fair. They know that they're probably hurting some people by their actions or their inactions, their failure to speak up on things, but they just do not realize the full scope of things. This is the real world I'm talking about here. The alternative is to think they're all involved and they're all programmed in one mind and it's just one big gigantic conspiracy and they're all in on it to the fullest. That doesn't make much sense. What does make sense, though, as I said, there are varying degrees of responsibility, varying degrees of knowledge, of knowing exactly what your part in the big picture is, and I would say that certainly some of them are oblivious to the big picture. They don't realize it. Same thing could possibly apply to these Jews that went around poisoning wells, knowing what they're doing was not right, but not necessarily realizing. Listen, as I mentioned, this was nearly a 2-hour-long show, and I welcome each of you to look it up and watch it in its entirety. And you will see some of that in which I spared you of, pretty much half of it, was a setup, essentially leading to the point where the Christians falsely accused the Jews and forced confessions out of them. They went on about their flatulence and showing how crazy and out of their mind they were, at least 10 minutes on that segment, before they got into the section where those were the people that accused the Jews. Of course, as I said, they had a long introduction and setup, first of all with this agnon or Agamemnon was his name, this Jewish character, innocent guy, and Jews were persecuted and the victims and all this other stuff, plus the, not necessarily subliminal messages that they're giving you, but the video, the graphics, showing this poor little Jew walking around with his head down and the Christians looking at him in disgust, and this is before the plague even took place, right? So they're setting it up, and then they get into these evil people from the German Rhineland that eventually come to the conclusion that the Jews poisoned the wells, so they forced these confessions out of countless Jews, which the History Channel states as a fact. They state this part of it as an absolute fact. A lot of other stuff is conjecture, and we can't prove it, and we don't know how this happened, how that happened, why these things took place, how these things spread, so on and so forth. But the one thing they state with absolute certainty, and as if it is an undeniable and proven fact, is that these Jews were forced into confession. And they give this whole display here. It's for the average person, it has an effect. They see these Jews being tortured, and you can't help but feel sympathy for them. You can't help but think that it's real. And you believe wholeheartedly, as you're watching this, if you don't know any better, that these poor Jews were seriously forced into confessions. The average person isn't going to question this and think, well, the writers of this or the producers at the History Channel, they're not biased. You're not going to think these things. They're going to just think.